I was taking pictures of a rising high school senior, just portraits, straight up portraits that I always take year in, year out. Now it's time for class of 2026, and I got to thinking when I was taking those pictures, I started to think, when is the best time to show the client the pictures? I'm Devin with CFX Studios TV, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about when is the best time to show your client or the person you took pictures of their pictures? Or do you ever show the client your pictures? So I need to preface this whole video by saying that all photographers take some clunker images. They all take bad images, no matter how long you've been photographing. That's just the nature of the beast. It relies on so many independent variables that we can't control them all, but it's our job as pros to know exactly how to control as much of it as we can to narrow down our margin of error or our margin of bad pictures. We should at least have satisfactory to satisfactory plus images for our clients. But does that apply to everybody behind the camera? And I got to thinking to myself, as I was taking those pictures of this new 2026 grad, does she like these pictures? We were going over the pictures and I wasn't looking directly at her. It's kind of a defense mechanism not to look at the client and respond to how they respond. So I was going through those pictures with this new 2026 senior, and I'm thinking to myself, does she like the pictures? Is this going to make her feel good to be put in your book? This is going to be publicized in front of all of the students, and a lot of people keep their yearbooks for a long period of time. She can always retake them, but it's probably going to be by a different photographer. And if she were to retake them, it probably won't be something that I'm going to be privy to. So I don't want to be, taking pictures in a blind and not knowing exactly whether or not my pictures are good or not. I want them to be honest and truthful with me. Unfortunate for most portrait photographers that all their clients, the pros, know that most of, if not all their clients are going to be extremely honest with them about their pictures, and specifically the ladies. Women tend to be very picky about their pictures, and they tend to be very honest with the photographer, even to the point where the photographer might get disrespected. Now, to organize this video, I wanted to organize this video by three different type of photographers: the newbies and or amateurs, and then you have the intermediate photographers. And then we're going to get to the pro photographers, because there's different levels of expectation depending on who you are. Let's start with the newbies. Now, the newbies, if you take a picture of somebody, you take a portrait of somebody, go ahead and show it to them right away. And the reason why is because they have no expectation too much of you getting the best picture they have ever saw in their life. They're not going to have that expectation. And since they don't have that expectation, if you want to be a better photographer, it will be to your best interest to listen to them. Because typically, if you take a picture of them, it's a reflection of them, quite literally. So if you don't take a good one, they're not going to be biased and say that it's bad. Unless you have some kind of beef with this person and they don't want to see you shine, they're typically not going to be lying to you about how they feel about the picture. If it's their hair, if it's their bang, if it's their makeup, typically it's the ladies. Men don't typically care too much about pictures unless they know that they're great. They won't really give you much of a response. Oh, thanks, But if it's great, they're going to really say something about it. But, that's cool, man. That's how guys react. But ladies, they're going to say, oh, my hair was out of place. They're going to give you fine details, especially if you're shooting with something like a 45 megapixel R5. One thing about pictures that a lot of people don't know, and this is something that newbies and intermediate photographers need to understand, is that 45 megapixels is not something that people planned to see of themselves 20 years ago. They didn't plan to see 100 megapixel resolution images of themselves properly white balanced and properly lit. A lot of people don't even think about that stuff when they come to take pictures with their cell phones. And so cell phone megapixels don't really matter. And since cell phone megapixels don't really matter, they don't really see all that details. If anything, the cell phone is actually doing in-camera retouching without them even knowing it, or taking a softer picture so they don't have these issues when looking at portraits of themselves. Specifically, portraits are the ones that really get on people's nerves if it's not done great. So newbies, make sure you just show the pictures, because you can learn something, and try your best not to get into your emotions too much so they won't get too upset at you and you won't get too upset at them, and you might not want to do photography anymore. It happens. It gets the pros of the pros anxious about portrait time, especially the headshots. And like I said, just keep a balanced mindset. Understand that some things people will overreact about. Maybe it's acne, maybe it's something they can't control, maybe it's a scar on their face, maybe it's something that they won't retouch, maybe it's their body weight. Maybe there's a lot of things that people get insecure about, and there's things that you can't change. So don't get too worked up about it, but there's also ways you can go about changing it. You know, don't take a picture too low of someone that's overweight. Maybe retouch a blemish if they have it on their face. There's so many things that you can do to make the pictures look better for things that you can't control in the moment. So newbies, don't get too let down. Trust me, this happens to the pros all the time. This anxiety of whether or not your picture or your photo is good enough. All right, amateur to intermediate photographers. If you're an amateur to intermediate photographer, chances are you're probably getting your first paid gigs. If you're getting your first paid gigs, you probably need to come to an agreement of when you need to show your portraits. The reason why is because typically when you're first starting, you're grinding, you're taking more pictures, but you're still on time. Your time is valuable, and the things that you do to your pictures are valuable. So if you're going to go through some retouching or anything based on what they feel about their portrait that you took, you need to get as many portraits done as possible. And if they stop after every picture and look at every picture and it drives you crazy because you know it's going over time and they just want to be very, very cautious about it, they're used to their smartphone, an immediate review, they will feel untrustworthy with you being behind the camera, and they can't be behind their own camera because this new smartphone, this new iPhone fueled image craze has let them see their own pictures whenever they want to, immediately after they take them. If you have a 45 million pixel camera like the R5, if they nitpick every single pixel, there's no way you're going to get better because you're not going to have time because you're so worried about that one incident, that one thing, or those millions of things that they were talking about. You have to make time for yourself. You have to make time to know that, hey, okay, we'll fix this, but let me go ahead and take all the pictures first. We'll come to an agreement on what we want to fix. We'll try our best to fix it because it's a collaboration. It's you and the actual client or the person themselves that you're taking a picture of. So you cannot let them overtake the photo shoot or the event or whatever that you're taking a portrait of. You can't let them take too much of your time because chances are you're going to need to be somewhere else to get some more money to afford all this expensive gear, because chances are you're going to have expensive gear as well. So come to a consensus, make sure they understand that your time is valuable, even though the portrait may have not come out the way that they want it to. And don't sit around showing them too many pictures at once because it's going to drain all of your time. Therefore, you won't be able to get better and or make as much money if you're spending much time with them. All right, pros, let me get up with you guys. Now, so pros, we already know what the deal is if we're a pro. If you have not done a portrait before as a pro, you have to understand it's just like the intermediate. You have to come to some kind of consensus, but there's going to be a heavier burden to you as a pro. The more consistent you get with your work, the more of a need they're going to want to have to see the images. As a matter of fact, to be a competitive pro, you want to be able to show them the images as much as you can, but also balance your time. Because if you're a pro, you're getting paid. If you're getting paid, that means your time is valuable. You have to be able to be effective, efficient, and right to the point. Your lighting has to be on point. Your body facings have to be on point. Your posture has to be on point. Your short loop lightings have to be on point. All these things, your lighting have to be flattering to the person, your depth of field, your perspective, your cropping, all these things need to be like 90% up. So by the time that they see the back of the screen, it's one of the best pictures they've ever seen of themselves. If not, it's close. The only time that things are going to go maybe a little south is because maybe something with the attire or something like that maybe you didn't catch. Maybe it's something unique to them that you didn't catch. You won't be able to catch everything, and as pros, we struggle with this because we have our egos and we want to be the best. We work so hard at it, and we want to show every 100% of the time every picture is going to be excellent. That's not always the case. You also have to understand that you need to keep your mindset, mentality, ego balanced with what you hear. You could hear, oh, these pictures are awful. These pictures are the worst pictures I've ever seen. Maybe it's because you have a 100 megapixel camera and they're not used to seeing that. Nobody's used to seeing a 100 million pixel count on their face or their body or anything like that. So if anything is off, they're going to feel mortified. They're going to feel extremely upset at what you did to them. because that's how they're going to make you feel. It was like, what did you do to me? And so with all that said, you have to understand you're also in competition with your latest cell phone that does automatic retouching, automatic HDR, in-camera HDR, pictures that automatically retouch themselves, studio mode with one click, Instagram filters with one click. You're competing with that in a sense because it's warping the mentality of a lot of people who take pictures. And even though you might have a client that respects you, they still might not like the picture. So keep your mindset very even and balanced as a pro. Of course, you're trying to make money, and of course, you want to satisfy your client, but also know that time is valuable and you want to try your best, but also understand that there very rarely can be some pictures that some people might not just like themselves. They might not like how they look. Maybe their weight is off. Maybe their blemishes are off. Maybe they have some kind of thing about themselves that they don't like. But isn't it the most rewarding part of photography? When you take a picture of somebody who you know didn't want to take the picture, who you knew had some kind of insecurities about themselves, but you took a picture that they loved. So think about that. I'm Devin with CFX Studios TV. Of course, as a pro, you have other stipulations, other things that could, you have to show the pictures, you have to rate the pictures. You're working with an artistic director, a model, some kind of company or something like that, and they need to see the pictures immediately. Of course, then show them the pictures. But when you're working in a situation where you have a chance to retake the picture or mediate how you feel about the picture or moderate the time and how they experience it, do that. Be in the moment. Don't be in your ego, and take and make great portraits. I'm Devin with CFX Studios TV. Links in the description on how you can support the channel, and stay tuned for the next episode.